Greetings, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Devil Dog Addiction turned positive Empfluence. That's right. It's a beautiful day. We're hanging out. It's going to be a nice old-fashioned episode of positive Empfluence. Let's see, we got that over there. So we'll put the seat there, and we'll make sure that things are working out good. Hope that you guys are having a great day. Hope that you and yours are having a great, wonderful day of it. I hope that what, dude? This is Smudge, little Smudgy Wudgy. You can see him on the cat cam. He's loving it. He's excited to be here. He's happy that you guys are hanging around. We're going on YouTube. We're going on, let's see, we're going on YouTube also. But here, let's get this one going too. Great. What you doing, buddy? Alright, my friends, this is Devil Dog Addiction. Show where we get in the nitty gritty about what it means to be better in addict living in today's society. But today, it is Sunday, so it is positive Empfluence, where we influence with empathy. We're going live here on TikTok, where if you want to get a better view of everything, going over to YouTube, it's better quality video over there on YouTube. The quality is better. But we're still going to get into it. We're going to be talking about things that we don't know, things that you thought you knew, things that you might not know, things that you might get to know, and things that we may know in the future. So, if you want to hang out here on this here Sunday mid-morning, then this is a good spot, because we're going to get into it in a couple seconds. Just need to make sure I have water so I'm hydrated. Make sure that I have protein and minerals for sustenance and water for hydration. What's up there, Van Crawford? What up there, Damian Baumgart? What up there, folks? Hope you guys are having a good Sunday. It's Positive Empfluence, a place where we influence with empathy. We're talking about what do we know, what do we not know, and what are we going to learn today. So, hope you guys are ready for it, because we are getting into it right now. Greetings, my friends. The illusion of knowing. The illusion of knowing. You know, you think you know what you know. You think you know these things. You think that you might have a clue about what reality is, but you know, everyone's got an answer, right? Everyone's got Everyone's got a quote, everyone's got a clip, everyone's got a verse, everyone has their truth, right? Everyone has their truth. Everybody has what they know to be their thing. They're like, hey, I got some advice for you on this, I got some advice for you on that. But here's the thing. Most people are not searching for truth, right? I'll say it again. Most people are not searching for truth. Most people are not searching for truth. They are searching for comfort. And comfort doesn't challenge you. No, no, no. Comfort doesn't ask you to look in the mirror like we do here at Positive Empfluence. Comfort does not help you grow, right? Comfort does not make you grow and feel good about what you're doing. So while they say, oh, money doesn't make you happy, money doesn't buy happiness. Well, if you have a bunch of money, you're definitely smiling real loud. People could say that. But people say, look, maybe money doesn't make you happy, but if you don't have it, it sure makes it a lot easier to be sad. What up there, O-U-O-S-E? I don't know if that's like a little parenthesis right there. Usu, what up there, Sergeant David Denny? Hey, that's cool. Sergeant, hey, if you're a sergeant, veteran there, hey, or active duty, thank you for your service. Appreciate that. But comfort doesn't challenge you, right? It doesn't ask you to look in the mirror. And that's why so many people keep getting stuck spiritually. We have churches, we have church leaders, we have religious leaders, we have spirituality leaders, we have every kind of religious leader. And a lot of the times, success and personal, monetary success is involved with a lot of these ideas about what makes you happy, or what makes you successful, what gives you peace of mind, or what makes you feel decent on a day-to-day basis. We mistake being loud for being right. How many times do we mistake people that are just being really loud and say the same thing over and over and over again? Oh, they must be right. Or we just hear the same thing in our echo chambers where we live. Oh, they must be right. Oh, I just hear this from there, I hear that from there, I hear this from there. We hear things from all over the place, yet sometimes we hear the same thing over and over and over again, and then before you know it, we start repeating it. And we start repeating these things, and we may not even be aware of the damaging things that we are saying. But there is power. If people are looking for a little bit of power, you're looking for a little bit of control. They say, your trauma, or certain things that you have issues, people growing up, or issues as young adults, or even into adulthood, a lot of times is because you don't realize that there is power in saying that I don't know. There's power in saying, hey, look, I'm searching for an answer for these things, but I don't really know exactly what I believe or don't believe about some of these things. And it's definitely difficult. Hey, what up there, Taco Bell? It's definitely difficult if you have a quick opinion of the world, or a quick to anger, or a quick to feel a certain way, without actually taking the time to think, let's see. Why do I feel a certain way about these things? Where did I learn this idea? Where did I learn this, these deep-seated, really strong emotions that I feel? Where did I learn these from? And what did I start, and what has it done to me as I grow up, as I relate to the world around me? And have I always been in an echo chamber? Have I lived in an area that just has been telling me one thing, and I've never really been challenged? My worldview's never been challenged. A lot of times when people grow up, they go maybe to college, or they get a good high school teacher, maybe a philosophy teacher. A lot of times will start asking these questions, what's the purpose of life? What's a soul? What's consciousness? Just the things that you would sit around, maybe smoke a little weed and just talk about with your friends. But now I don't think that very many people socialize as much one-on-one or two-on-one or as a group physically as much as they used to. So if everything we're hearing and everything we're knowing is coming through some sort of electronic filter, then if you control the electronic filters, and if you control the messages that get out over these things, and this isn't a big grand conspiracy that someone's trying to steal your brains from the inside out. I'm just saying it makes sense because people are trying to make money and they want us distracted. They want us fighting. They want us arguing. They want us comparing ourselves with one another. They want us greedy. They want us, and by they, I mean the people that have all the wealth, right, and have all the money. And when I say all, of course, I don't mean all, because that would be weird, because that'd be 100% of everything. But we can definitely say a lot. We can say a majority for sure, because such a small amount of people, individuals, have the wealth that so many people that on the bottom all have to share. And you can understand why would someone get so upset if they don't even have an opportunity to make a good life for themselves, because the idea that, oh hey, you just need to get off your fucking ass and get a job that's such a silly notion that someone could just do that in today's day and age without some sort of sense of direction and everything like that. But anyway, let's get into today's thing, because we need to start with a little bit of humility, because that is where growth starts. If you're not open to growth, well, you're definitely not going to grow. So today, this episode is not about being right. It's about getting real, folks. It's about getting real with you. It's about getting real with me. It's about getting real with everybody. It's about learning to tell the difference between something that looks holy and something that actually heals. Because today we have so often that we get stuck in rituals. We get stuck in repetitions. We get stuck in the study of verses, or the study of books, or the study of ideas, instead of real world application and real world growth, right? Instead of just being stuck in the idea that, well, I'm just going to study the Bible a whole bunch, or I'm just going to study this or study that, and never step foot into the real world, into the areas where you may deem a place that is such maybe bad, right? Jesus always said that he didn't come to save the righteous, right? The people that are the righteous don't need help. Sorry, buddy. Here you go. He just needs some food, most likely, because he is a cat and he's lazy and he's hungry all the time. So let's chill out for a second. Let's take a little prayer before we get into today's main verse. Take a moment of silence, right? Center ourselves. Lord, help us to quiet our pride, our individual selfish thoughts, just for a little bit, maybe like a half hour or so, right? Help us to trade the illusion of knowing a bunch. Help us to trade that illusion of, hey, I know everything, or I'm so sure in what I'm doing. So we get a little bit of courage to ask the question, hey, you know what? What can I learn? So when we ask the question, then we got to be open to hearing the answer back. And no, I don't think I've ever had God speak to me like in some different voice inside your head, but more it's kind of like a notion, or certain things happen over and over again, or coincidences that are just so over the top coincidental that it couldn't be anything else but divine intervention, of course, right? What up there, Marianne James 53? What up there, Albert Weber? What up there, Albert Weber twice? Joseph Monroe 84, chilling on the bottom, chilling. That's pretty cool. So we're going to get into our first verse, folks. A little opening prayer. We have a moment of silence. We went off on a long tangent and talked about a bunch of things beforehand, but hey, we're going to get into it. So today, Matthew 7, 15 through 20. Here we go. Chapter 7, 15 through 20. Oh, this is going to be good. Here we go. Okay, so we've been in this book. We've been in this chapter before, right? We've been in Matthew chapter 7 before, but we did the first 10 verses of it. So here, we did the narrow gate, right? That you can't enter God's kingdom only through the narrow gate, right? So the gate's big to get in the kingdom, but a bunch of people are going to try. They're going to be like, hey, look, do this. Hey, do that. Hey, do this. Hey, do that. And it's everywhere. People are saying, oh, do this and you'll be saved. Do this and you'll be feeling better. Do this and you'll have everlasting life forever, right? The idea of human life lasting forever, it appeals to us because we don't like the idea of dying, right? We don't like the idea of ceasing to exist. But even in the Bible, the idea of life everlasting isn't what so many of Christian teachers are teaching, right? So here we go, and we're going to get into it, and it's kind of ironic that we just said false teachers, Christian teachers teaching, because this is exactly the biggest of Jesus' pet peeves is religious hypocrisy. Here we go, folks. Beware of false prophets. Oh, wait. Let me see. Here we go. 15. Here we go. Verse 7, 15. Here we go. The tree and its fruits. Beware of false prophets who come disguised as harmless sheep, but are really vicious wolves. So, hey, a lot of times we have sayings in the world that we get from places like, red at night, sailors delight, red in the morning, sailors take warning. That's straight out of the Bible, right? But this one right here is another one where people talk about, are you really a sheep in wolf's clothing? Hey, that right there is straight out of this book right here, Matthew chapter 7, verse 15 and 16, right? You can identify them by their fruits. Can you pick grapes from a thorn bush or figs from thistles? A good tree produces good fruit, and a bad tree produces bad fruit. A good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot produce good fruit. And a bad tree can't produce good fruit, right? So every tree that does not produce good fruit is chopped down and thrown into the fire. Yes, just as you can identify a tree by its fruit, you can identify people by their actions. Oh man, people aren't going to like that because people love to sit around and talk about this and talk about that and he said, she said, and all the good stuff. But a good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree can't bear good fruit. So if you're doing bad things and you're preaching wickedness and you're preaching hypocrisy and your walk doesn't match your talk, then it's easy to see. It's easy to see because what people are doing, first off, doesn't match what they're talking about. And the next thing on that is that the fruits of our labors, he talks about fruits quite often, talks about fruits about, you do things, whatever you do, then you will reap the type of, whatever effort you put into something is what you get out of it. Honestly, I can tell you this from addiction, that a lot of the times, putting in a minimal amount of effort, you will get back lots of stuff. So I think it's because the idea that doing something or getting down into the dirt or going from idea to action is so difficult and so rare that it's basically like the one thing that we focus on in the world. People who are doers, they can go from coming up with an idea to turning it into fruition. And if you can do that for lots of things, especially if they're good, a lot of times people are really good at producing things, or they're really good at, let's say they're really good at business, or they're really good at manipulating people, or they're really good liars, or they're really good at doing certain things. And they'll use their powers, per se, for bad, right, instead of good. Using your fruit, using your God-given gift to lead people astray. And I think that's what, a lot of times he talks, I used to say or feel that, Jesus' pet peeve was religious hypocrisy. But I think we can go one step further and say that his double pet peeve is us wasting whatever our purpose is, wasting our God-given gifts, wasting our gifts and not doing them. But not only is us not doing them bad, but us using them specifically for something negative. And even worse, on top of that, is using that specifically and doing something negative that leads somebody else astray, or leads someone else into their own pit of eternal damnation, or leads somebody else into their own pit of crap, leads somebody else into their own world of sadness, right? And this verse isn't just about religious leaders. A lot of times people think, oh, they're just talking about religious leaders. Oh, we're just talking about religious leaders. Oh, religious this or religious that. But that's not true. It's for all of us. You can say the right words, you can wear the right cross, you can quote the right verse, but you can still be producing that rotten fruit. You can still be producing the bad fruit, because we can tell it in the way that you treat people. The evidence of truth is not in our vocabulary. No, it's in your day-to-day vibration with the rest of creation, right? It's on your day-to-day way that you blend in with the rest of the people around you. And I don't mean blend in as in you disappear. I mean blend in as in you balance, as in you are level, not only with your community, but with yourself. So let's get into the definitions of this segment. Certainty, the illusion that understanding equals control. The illusion that just because we may understand a little bit about this or a little bit about that, that for some reason that we can now control it, or that it's now belongs to us, or that we are now like in dominion over it. When we cling to certainty, we stop growing. When we say, oh, you know what, I know this, that, and the other, there's nothing else more I can learn about this, I can just lock this away as something I don't have to care about anymore, or worse yet, lock it away as something that I'm like the resident expert on, and not ever keep trying to learn more about it, or not be open to the idea that, hey, obviously as time goes by we learn new things and old ideas get revamped, and we should be revisiting some of these things. I mean, we know that just in general, I mean, that's how the world, we should be working in general. We should be doing that with our criminal justice system. We should be doing that with basically anything. We have these ideas when, say, in business, you want to have mentorship programs where you teach the younger generation how to do a job or how to do a task or how to get along in the world better, so that it makes it easier for them to do it. But if we don't try to help the next person along in each aspect of our life, that's why people say that maybe we should have a 12-step program for everybody, right? There should be a step, hey, what up there, heckling point? There should be a 12-step program basically for everything out there, right? If you have, and I think the main point, the biggest things out of programs that I think that people should take from it is that if you have an issue and you have a problem, one of the biggest ways to help fix it is to talk to other people that are going through it or have gone through it or in the middle or have succeeded in getting through it and are on the other side. If not only to provide some definition and some direction and some hope, right? Because when you're in the middle of these things, a lot of the times you don't even feel like there's even light at the end of the tunnel, and that's the worst place that you can get in. Especially if you start adding these things together. You start adding mental health into that type of attitude, you start adding drug addiction to that attitude, you add maybe a bad relationship, maybe a weapon that's in the household that wasn't locked up right, and then you got bad situations. But either way, my friends, we live in an age where information is everywhere. It's everywhere. It's like we're living in the age of the wisdom of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. People scroll more than they pray. They definitely scroll more than they pray. They post more than they ponder existence. Roughly 72% of Americans say they trust their own opinions over experts. Let's say that one again. 72% of Americans, and I say this is like almost the definition of American hubris. And look, I'm not saying that if you're American and we are American, it means that like you're just instantly a prideful dick. No, I'm just saying that we should just be open a little bit to the idea that maybe for a little bit of while, America hasn't had the best relationship with the rest of the world, right? As opposed to, they saved the day in World War II, but ever since then they've just been kind of making wars wherever we want to go, right, and causing a ruckus. But do what you can. But 72% of Americans say they trust their own opinions over experts. Wow, that's wild. And nearly 60% share articles that they never even read. Interesting, right? And I think we've all been guilty of that. We've all maybe seen something, a hot take that we saw online. We're like, oh my goodness. And it's really like hit us in such a way that we're like, oh my God, it hits a heartstring maybe, or it hits an anger string, or hits some empathy. And then before you know it, you've reposted it, and it's getting some clicks. People are like, oh, and then maybe halfway through the day, you read another article, and you're like, oh, so-and-so's such and such It turns out it's not a true thing, right? And then you're like, oh crap, so you gotta go and you gotta erase it. So that right there is just a very small example of the big idea of what we're talking about, in the idea that we should be slow to anger and slow to come up with opinions of things, especially if we haven't had time to like talk about it, or not talk about it, but like research it a little bit, or some time to, or maybe we know about it from a previous experience, or maybe from like a class in school or something like that, or maybe we have a job that is in a specific field. But then think about that. Say you're an expert in your own field and you're like, hey, listen to me. But too bad you're talking to 70% of Americans, because they're not going to trust you because they trust their own opinion over your expert opinion. And that means we built a culture, my friend, where the loudest voice wins, not the truest ones. And unfortunately, it is seeping into faith. And yeah, I know a lot of people like to think that sex, politics, and religion are things that we shouldn't be talking about, but they dominate our lives. They dominate every single bit of how we interact with one another. And this type of thing, where being loud and just saying the same thing over and over again, or using shame or that type of thing, seeping into faith, people treat religion like a brand. You want the aesthetic of belief without the discipline of actually having to go through and do the disciplinary work to reap these benefits of what true, I don't even like to use the word religion. I guess you could say Christianity, because we use the verses of Jesus Christ, right, as our base stepping point for the majority of these episodes. So I guess you could say discipleship of Christ, right? You could say that, I suppose. But people quote verses with hashtags like, oh God, I hate this one, thoughts and prayers. On Veterans Day is coming up, so I'll go get my bloomin' onion and I'll get a lot of thoughts and prayers. But honestly, people can fuck their thoughts and prayers. What do they do for people who are on the street and need some help, or can't get through to the VA, or are worse yet, can't get through the VA, and they're stuck in the system of the VA? And I think that's one of the most frustrating places to be, because you have taken an effort to actually do something, and you're doing something in the VA system, and then they're just like, well, you got to hurry up and wait. They're like, oh, get here, sign this, oh, we need this form, we need that. And then you wait. And look, this is not a VA bashing place. There are amazing men and women that work at the VA that keep that bad boy trucking along. And, bitching about things is one thing. We all need to bitch about things, right? But we can't stop at bitching about it. We have to actually go one step further and try to figure out how to make a little bit of change to make it better. Because faith without growth, well, my friends, that is just nostalgia. If your beliefs have not evolved since high school, you're not faithful. You're frozen in time. And right now, only 22% of Americans attend worship regularly, but over 70% identify as people of faith. Let's say that again, folks. 22% of Americans attend worship regularly. So that's like one in five, right? And 70% of people, so that's about 3 out of 4, right? A little less than that, like 4 out of 6, something like that, identify as people of faith. So where's the disconnect? It's just like we're talking about your walk match your walk. You got to be balanced, and that's why people feel so bad all the time. That's why people feel like they're not fulfilling their purpose, because they're not fulfilling their purpose. And we're all creators. The worst thing that we've done as a society is tell people that they're not creative. Everybody's a creator. It depends what your gift is, or what you're good at, or what you're supposed to be good at, that's going to help make the rest of the community better, right? God does not need your memorization. He wants your participation. Because if you want, if what you believe doesn't make you more compassionate, then I'm telling you, my friends, it's not the words of Christ. It's not Christian truth. It might be tradition. It might be ritual. It might be repetition. It might be comfort, right? But religion, or I guess religion is comfort food, but I don't think spirituality is supposed to be comfort food. And holiness, my friends, is proven in love. not in language, not in how many verses you can memorize, not how good you are at reading. And I tell you this, folks, if you have to be really good at reading, well, then there's going to be a lot of people out there that aren't going to get the good word that we're trying to preach, because we've been taking away people's, reading and writing and math and social skills, especially with now that we have all these fancy schmancy AI things that are going to be helping all this place out. Anyway, I don't want to go down that road, but we got to just start and end at that same place, which is honesty. Not pretending that we've got it all figured out, but daring to learn something deeper. The illusion of knowing keeps us locked in. It keeps us locked in our ego. It keeps us locked in the idea that we don't have to learn anything else. But humility of learning sets us free. It's fun to learn. It's cool to learn. Look at my shirt. It says read. It's our only hope. Star Wars, right? Coming up next, my friends, it's the comfort trap. We're going to talk about why we cling to these old lies, why we cling to these comfortable beliefs, even when they are the very ideas holding us back. The comfort trap. Why do we stay where it hurts? Well, it's wild how human beings will stay in misery simply because it's familiar. You know what I'm talking about, folks. We are like, oh, you know what? I'm going to grow today. I'm going to do better today. I'm going to make a difference in my own life today. And you make a little bit of like one step forward, and then you're like, oh, this is different. It's uncomfortable. But then you look behind you and you're like, oh, but back there is dysfunctional. But hey, you know what? That's a dysfunction that I know. It's just like when we talk about when you try to relearn things in your brain, right? You got those synapses, and you got the neural pathways, and you got to keep doing things over and over again. We try to talk about learning a new habit. That's why we go with incremental change here on Devil Dog Addiction. Turn Positive Influence. We talk about slowly getting better, right? But every day trying to get better. It's hard. It's so easy to get overwhelmed. I know I do. I get overwhelmed quite often with this idea that, well, I messed my life up so much with addiction that I'm so far behind any of my peers, and then I get stuck in the comparison trap. Then I get stuck in like an envy trap, and then the envy trap kind of turns to greed. Hey, what up, JB? What up? Hey, what's up, man? What up, Hot Wheels? That's funny. I like it. Hope you're having a good day. Hope the weather's not bad down there. You don't have any hurricanes, do you, down in Florida? Anyway, you can't heal in the same environment that makes you sick, right? So the comfort, even though the comfort is there, it's a dysfunctional comfort, and you're never going to get better. You're definitely not going to get better. Oh, nice, 71 degrees. I'll get better with that. And we're going to bounce over to the next one right now. We're going to go to the Islam faith, the Quran, 1736. Do not pursue that of which you have no knowledge. Indeed, the hearing, the sight, and the heart, about all those, one will be questioned. Okay, now that one kind of is not quite as easy to follow as Jesus' words, but we're going to get into it. Basically what it means is you don't follow blindly. You don't just follow somebody because they say to follow them. And you sure as hell don't repeat what you have not felt and understood and learned and actually understood, like, what the opposite side of these things are. That's why when we do our fourth segment, we always do the opposite card, because it's good to know that you can argue for one thing, but until you show the other side and explain why the other side isn't right, or why the other side is more damaging, or why the other side is maybe, and frankly, sometimes when you're doing research into things, you might find out that the other side of things is actually the side that you want to be on. And if that isn't a mind fumble, I don't know what is. But we're going to get into this definition real quick. Comfort. Basically, comfort, my friends, is emotional sedation disguised as peace. You could think, oh, I'm so peaceful. But really, you're just comfortable. Really, you're just not being challenged. Really, you're just stuck in an area where you are either floating on air. I mean, you can be comfortable in your addiction. Yeah, I know it's not a nice thing. People will be like, oh, don't tell people that. You don't want people that are in addiction to be like, oh, yeah, I'm okay. I must be fine. I must be comfortable in my addiction because bad things aren't happening, or I'm not arrested right this second, right? But not having to deal with the emotions, people will take the comfort. And sometimes comfort is just the less, let's see, how would you say this? It's just the less hurt of two things. So let's say you have two things and they both hurt. None of them are really the traditional idea of what I would call comfort, right? Like if someone on the outside that's not a drug addict living under the bridge would look at that and be like, dang, that doesn't look very comfortable to me. But someone who is, way living down the tracks and they are getting rain on every day is looking up, looking on that viaduct as the next place to move. So comfort is relative, but comfort can also numb you so gently that you mistake this paralysis for calm, and the calm is not the same as peace. And I know a lot of people say peace and calm, but peace is what we're striving for. Honesty, the willingness to tell yourself the truth even when it hurts. Honesty, they say in the programs that some people do not have the ability to be honest with themselves, and those people are unfortunate because it's rare that they recover. Change, the natural law of existence that we spend our lives resisting. If we could just learn to find a way to accept the idea that change in our season is a good thing, it's part of life, and all life, to value the life, it has the death. So when you look at it that way, it's easier to accept your position in the world, and then it's easier to accept, okay, well, now that I know my position in the world, what can I do to make my position better? And my better, now, don't get tricked into these words because they can be different meanings for different people. I say, oh, what's going to make my life better? And some people might say, oh, successful, oh, win the lottery, oh, get some money, get a job, find a relationship, find this, that, or the other. But I think that while we live in this culture that's built on comfort, we have discovered that we want our shortcuts to success. We want our get-rich-quick schemes not only in money, but everything. We want to find love quick. We want to find, we want to be at the tippity top of the career ladder overnight. And especially if we're addicts in recovery, we've been in addiction for 30 years, and we have 30 days without a drink, and now we want to fix the world. We want to spend every day with our kids. We want to spend all this money. We have like $10 in our pockets, but all $10 is going to go to do this or do that, to make up for all these things that I've done. I think that's probably why we can figure out that nearly 80% of Americans report they'd rather stay in an unfulfilling job, right, than risk starting over. People are scared of big change. We keep calling that, sorry about that. 6% say they avoid difficult conversations, even when the silence harms relationships. A lot of times we call it keeping the peace. Keeping the peace. Oh, I'm just keeping the peace. A lot of times this is a big thing between generations. There's just when you have unhealthy communication that teaches communication, unhealthy communication, and so on and so forth, and then you crisscross over from community to community, it's not that difficult to understand why we have so many people that think communication is one thing and other people that think communication the other. And I don't really think that anybody is wrong or righter than one another. I think we just have this thing that however we've done it is what we view as the right way of doing it. And I think that if we just got a little bit better at listening to other people's perspectives, even if we don't agree with the perspective, even if we aren't going to, like, at the end of the day be like, all right, I'm going to switch everything that I believe about everything and, change my life and do exactly what this person is doing. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, don't be so closed-minded to the idea that what we're thinking is the only way to look at it, and anybody else that's looking at it a different way is a fucking moron. And worse yet, that they should be quiet. If someone's telling you to be quiet, and someone's telling you that they can't speak their piece ever, if someone's saying, oh, you know what, you're not allowed to say that, you better be quiet, and is trying to control the flow of your information, that, my friends, is an unhealthy relationship. And it doesn't mean we have to like cut these relationships off, but it does mean that we have to speak up for ourselves. And spiritually, my friends, we do the same thing. We cling to outdated ideas, right? Because they don't ask for anything new with us. We can't evolve moving forward, we just say, well, that's my faith. The same way people say, that's just my excuse. Right now, more than 55% of adults say they feel stuck in life. And nearly 70% admit they avoid self-reflection because it makes them anxious. Well, what about those of us that have anxiety and depression already? Oh, God, what we're going to have to do is look at this. It's making me anxious. Maybe that's why I feel anxious, because we're so worried about looking at our future. And then we look at social media, or we look at the internet, which is basically just the worst place for anybody that has anxiety issues, or the very, very, very worst place of anybody that has a bad case of the, what would you call it? It's like the worry that you, keeping up with a bad case of keeping up with the Joneses, right? That's not, the internet's the worst place for you to live. So here's the question, my friends. What are you holding on to that is keeping you back? That's keeping you from listening to something different? What lie are you living with that is keeping you cozy? Keeping you cozy-mosey that you don't want to let go of? And I tell you this, that because until you let it go, we're just going to keep learning, or trying to learn, these same lessons over again. But in order to understand that idea, we have to move forward to the next segment. And that is the meaning behind the words. We're going to talk about how language loses pulse when it's disconnected from emotion. So many times people just say things. They repeat things. They retype things. They repost things. They read things and they reread things, and then they reread them over again from different places. And those echo chambers just reinforce incorrect or dangerous, sometimes dangerous things, because it affects your connection with other humans. Anyway, let's get into this next one, the meaning behind the words. When language loses pulse. Words, yes, words. Words are a funny thing. They can build bridges. They can definitely start wars. They can carry life or choke it out completely. And yet somehow we've turned faith, something living and breathing, something that is deeper than the sounds that are attached to the words coming out of my mouth, into a bunch of words. We've got sermons, we've got books upon books, we've got gigabytes and terabytes of thoughts and articles and pages, and probably more things have been written and lost to the sands of time than anybody could ever know. We have quotes, hashtags, statements of faiths. Even people in jail have their, what's that thing called? Not the vendetta. Oh, God. The word when they write all the stuff down that they're all talking about. So let's try to...
Manifest.
Yes, a manifesto, of course. Here, let's check it out real quick. John 4:23 and 24. The hour is coming, and now is, when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and the truth, for the Father is seeking such to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth. Right? Say that again. God is spirit. So those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth. We're going to add that truth at the end there, because a lot of times they talk about lying and misrepresenting yourself. And so when we say truth in this sense of the word, we're talking about walking our walk and talking our talk, and having those things be balanced and copacetic with our faith, right? So Jesus is saying, stop thinking that God lives in your rituals. Stop thinking that God lives in your pictures. Stop even thinking, and I know this one is going to get thrown out by all the religious leaders of the world. Stop thinking that God lives in your actual physical Bible. Okay? Yeah, I can understand that people say, God's word is living, and it's a living word, and it moves the spirit of the word, and all that good stuff. Yeah, I understand what you're saying there. But physical Bibles, like I know people have like a family Bible, say, or a Bible that goes back all these ways, or like a president gets sworn into office, so they'll bring a special Bible, right? The Library of Congress has a special Bible. Yeah, and those things are cool, but I think the Catholic faith, well, maybe I'm not saying the Catholic faith, but like the leaders of the Catholic Church, maybe take it a little to the extreme where they have like their, who knows what they have down in the Vatican, in the dungeons down there where they have all their manuscripts and the temple things, or all the things over the course of time that have been deemed, holy relics, relics, bones from saints or people that we've deemed more holy than ourselves. These are things that don't balance and do not go along with Jesus' teachings. They don't go along with the idea of the Christian faith or love. Don't even talk about the Christian faith, because even labeling it like that can sometimes get people tricked. The idea of it is love one another as you love yourself. Worship the Lord God your mind with all your heart, soul, and strength. And the very next thing is to love one another. Love other people as yourself. Do unto others. There's no shortage of stories in there trying to teach us that, right? But in order to care about other people, you got to care about yourself. But in order to care about yourself, you got to understand what is caring. And it's not just words. And this is a reminder that God is found in authenticity, not accuracy. So they're not going to get graded on how good you can memorize these words. He's not grading your pronunciation. He's reading your pulse, right? He's reading your emotional pulse. Worship isn't about where you are or even what words you use. It's about who you are while you're saying them, or who you are and what those words, when you say them, help you do what you're going to do in the future. So definition we're going to real quick. Expression. Spirit turned into sound or action. We all need to figure out a way that we're going to get our spiritual expression going out of us when what's inside of us finally comes out. Because that's the whole purpose of our lives, right? In this sense of the word, is how do we get our ideas into real, tangible things? And that expression, it's not about skill. It's about, sincerity. It's about basically showing up and continuously being honest and trying your best. Emotion. Energy that translates what words cannot. A lot of the times, people get lost in the sauce of words. We get lost in the sauce of what does this word mean, or what does that word mean? Or some people that have bigger vocabularies than others can maybe communicate more fluently or more effectively because there's different, say, colors, different color schemes to your emotion. So let's say if we just have red, white, and blue, right? But then let's say if you have red, magenta, rose, you know what I'm saying. So emotions are the same just like that. We are going to feel these emotions whether we understand the words to them or not, which is why little babies probably, I'm not a little baby, I don't really know all this, but it seems like that's probably why little babies cry, right? They don't have the words to express how they're feeling, but they're feeling a certain way nonetheless. So maybe that's why I would say, you got to get back to be like a child in the eyes of God, because we got to get past all these words. And then, of course, then we start adding bad words into our vocabularies, negative words, curse words, and I don't want to go into all that stuff. But anyway, connection. The sacred exchange between hearts that are open. And that's what we're talking about in terms of addiction, getting healed in addiction and not being isolated, but learning how to connect with other people. And right now, the Surgeon General says, there's an epidemic of loneliness. And hey, a lot of people don't believe that COVID was an epidemic or pandemic, but we can surely believe that loneliness is definitely a pandemic right now. And it's maybe one of the most ironic, if not weird, phenomena that's going on, because the world is easily the most populated that it's ever been, unless there's been like some sort of crazy mass extinction event that we don't know of yet. But there's also there's tons of people everywhere living in these big old cities, and we have the internet so we can connect to people across the world. We can communicate with anybody that we want to at any given time. Yeah. Oh, and yes, also right now there's more people living in cities than at any other point in history, right? So you'd think that, wow, we're basically living stacked on top of one another. but I don't have enough people. I don't have enough friends to play a game of Monopoly. Right? So it's kind of frustrating. But how about this? Nearly 68% of Americans say they feel disconnected from faith communities. And over half describe worship as routine rather than meaningful. Yeah, I know that we got a lot of churches that have really good music these days, but that doesn't, worship is not always about the music. Some of us don't like that music too much, but, other people do. But that's not because people hate God. That's saying, oh, it's just routine, it's not meaningful. It doesn't make me feel good inside. But it's because they can't feel Him in what they're hearing. We're reciting poetry that we've basically stopped believing in. And when your heart stops believing the words your mouth is saying, that, my friends, is spiritual dissonance. And that is when your faith soundtrack basically goes sharp or flat. The truth is, God's not impressed with our vocabulary. He is impressed with our vulnerability and our ability to show up. And maybe that's why the loudest preachers often sound the most hollow, because volume does not equal connection. You can memorize every verse in the book, but if you don't live the emotion behind it, it's just ink, my friends. Words are supposed to wake you up, not put you to sleep. Over 70% of people say they cry more from music than sermons. You know why? Because music carries feeling. It doesn't ask for an agreement. It asks for participation. If any of you have been to a really good concert, you've been to a music venue or a concert of an artist that you are really into, or a type of music that you are really, it's your jam, right? You know what I'm talking about. You can feel the music even without words. And God is not waiting for a perfect speech. And yes, I know, I have amazing speech-giving abilities. But He doesn't care about that. He is waiting for us to say something honest. Or better yet, to feel what He wants us to feel or to say, and then to be able to put that into words, to maybe help other people find a better, closer relationship with themselves and their Creator. So, that deep sigh when you're overwhelmed, take a deep breath. Whisper to yourself some encouraging things when you're unsure. Maybe sometimes you have a thank you in church or at a music venue that makes you tear up for no reason. Maybe you're reading at home in your Bible and the word sometimes jumps off the page at you, or it pulls at your heartstrings and makes you think of something that you usually wouldn't. Those, I feel, are how God connects with people and how He talks with people. I've never had a voice in my head that isn't me be like, Nick, you should do this. Right? It's not like Charleston Heston is hitting you over the head with a staff and then I'm going to know what to do. But I think that being open to coincidence, being open to nuance, being open to intuition, being open to advice to others, a lot of times we get sent messages, we get sent advice, we get sent direction from other people. What up there, Shannon Bennett? What up there, Blessed Child of? What up there, Mia? What up there, Darla Francis? What up, Taco Truck Duck? What up, Joanne Tuttle? What up, Sleazy? All right. Okay, my friends. We have talked about what it actually looks like. Or no, we've talked about everything except what it actually looks like to live in this truth. How do we reset? How do we rebuild? How do we choose integrity over the illusion of comfort in our everyday life? So here's the thing about growth. It doesn't start in a church pew or a yoga pose. It starts the moment you decide to stop lying to yourself. Just like addict recovery, addiction recovery, just like alcoholism recovery. It starts when you have the ability to see yourself and what you're in or where you are or what you've learned from and who you've learned from for what you really are. We talked about the illusion, comfort, empty words, hypocrisy, but all of it circles back to one thing: honesty. And not the kind you post online, not the kind that makes you look brave, not the kind that makes you look courageous, or the kind that makes you look righteous. Right? I'm talking about quiet, gut level honesty that happens when nobody's watching, or when you're talking with just one or two other people, when you're talking maybe just one other person, when you're talking with a trusted friend, a confidant, a relative. Those are the resets. The name of the episode is Heart Reset, and this is where the reset happens. Because you can complain and talk about all the other stuff, but until you move forward with the new stuff, it's all just talk. And once you can reset and move forward, things start to change. And not because the world gets easier. I tell you this, it doesn't make the world any easier. But basically because you've stopped running from what is truly real. So for this one, we're going to stick with Judaism. Proverbs 16:2. All a man's ways seem right to him, but the Lord weighs the spirit. To justify, or to paraphrase that, we can justify anything. We can easily justify anything. We can rationalize anything. All a man's ways seem right to him, but the Lord weighs the spirit. God does not measure us by the human ways. He doesn't measure us by the surface. He weighs us by what's inside us, what's in our soul, what's in our character, what's in our integrity, what's in our, what's in our wants for others, what's in our compassion for others, what's in our, compassion for ourselves and self-understanding. He judges motive, not the mask that we use or tell people about the reason we do these things. And what does it mean for us? Well, it means that this verse, this Proverbs verse, coming straight out of chapter 16, is the mirror of our society. It's not asking if you're right. It's basically just asking if you're ready to be real in the terms of what God wants for us. Because at the end of the day, your spirit is going to tell the truth, even if your mouth won't. And that's why we can, I don't know if you've ever, if you, as an addict, you lie quite a bit. Around liars all the time. There's some people that are good at lying, some people that are bad at lying. And if you have been around people that lie often, you can start getting good at telling if people are if people are lying. And your spirit, this is what we're talking about. Like, your spirit is going to tell the truth. And when you see people lying with their mouth, once you're open to it and in tune to seeing certain things, you can tell when people are lying quite often. Obviously, we probably can't tell all the time. But there's certain ways that you can tell when people are lying. Because it's not natural. It's not supposed to be natural. I'm sure that they say that lying is, it's a normal thing of growing up. It's, it's a survival mechanism. Little kids don't want to get in trouble, right? But for some of us, that becomes a real bad habit, but it also becomes the only way that we have figured out how to cope with the world around us. And if the only way of coping is lying, as you get older, your means and modes of lying get better. Drugs or even crazier stories, right? But anyway, let's get into this. Integrity, the alignment between what you say, what you feel, and here it comes, what you do. It's the opposite of performance. Consistency, that builds trust with God, but mainly it builds trust with others. And as an addict in recovery, trust, the lack of thereof, is what destroys relationships for sure, especially marriages. If you don't have trust, even if there's no infidelity, it's going to be very difficult for marriages to last without ongoing trust. Especially as a Marine Corps veteran, if you're say you go to war with someone, or say you go, you're in a unit with somebody, you got to be able to trust your buddies. You got to know that they're honest. They're going to be where they say they're going to be, or they're going to have your back. They're not going to leave you. Presence, the sacredness of showing up, but not just physically. You can show up physically to a lot of things. Showing up mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. hey, if you can do that, you got skills, because it's not that easy to do. Easier said than done, of course. Grace, the gift that allows you to reset without shame. And we're trying to reset in this episode, and a lot of times people will try to get you to change your ways, or try to get you to change, try to get you to reset your life, but the reason behind it is shame or guilt or some sort of other negative manipulation. But grace is God saying, I still believe in you, even when you don't. And hey, wouldn't it be nice to always have that? When you don't believe in yourself, when you're down on yourself the most, when you're sitting there and you're saying, I'm done, I give up, I can't do it another day, oh, F this, F that, I'm done, I'm throwing in the towel. But there's somebody there saying, hey, nah, you're good, you're okay, you're going to make it. I know it sucks right now, but we can get through this. And look, it's not that common for people to have that kind of thing. So if you have that type of thing, you better be grateful that you have it. And better yet, pass that shit forward. Look, we're all really good at justifying ourselves. We say, I didn't mean it, they started it, or I'm just being honest. There's nothing worse than somebody like, I don't mean any disrespect. But if someone starts a sentence with, I don't mean any disrespect, you sure as shit, they're going to say something disrespectful. But Proverbs remind us that God's not grading our excuses. He's reading our energy. He's reading our spirit. He's reading our souls. Nearly 90% of people admit they lie to themselves at least once a week. How funny is that? And I like this. We can put that in there too. 90% of people lie to themselves at least once a week. Using those statistics, we can say that we can say give or take a few percentage of give or take error. So if 90% of people admit they lie to themselves at least once a week, and if that one time a week was when they were taking this survey, and 90% of those people are lying about that, then we can at least say that 100% of people probably lie to themselves at least once a week. And over 60% say they avoid self-reflection because it makes them uncomfortable. So here we go, folks. Earlier we said that 70% of people avoid self-reflection because it makes them feel anxious about things. And now we got 60% say they avoid self-reflection because it makes them feel uncomfortable. So there's a lot of reasons people do not approach self-reflection. And a lot of them sound like it's because people are uncomfortable. They don't know how to express their feelings. They don't know how to process their feelings. We build entire lives around avoiding these things. But you can't heal from what you refuse to look at. So the truth might sting a little bit, but the lie, it kills you slowly. Sometimes quickly, but a lot of times it just kills you slowly over time. And you can't get up, you can't get over these things that you're trying to face, that you're trying to get over. Maybe because you're not even admitting what the right problem is. The truth will set you free. You can live decades pretending that you're fine and never one iota of that be free. Honesty is scary though because it breaks lots of things. And that's the point. You have to break these things to make room for something better. And here's the good news. You don't have to get it right all at the start. Reset doesn't mean starting over. It means starting honestly or getting right and balancing with yourself. I didn't get that. I have to give my props to my mom on that one. She came up with that idea. She kept reminding me because I was like, I just need to do this and then I can start my life. I just need to do that and then I can start my life. Oh, do this and I'll start my life. And all that time, it negates all the good things you're doing, or all the hard work you're doing, or all the preparation that you're doing, or all the little individual things that you're continuously working on. You're living your life right now, my friends. We're living it right now. If you're listening to this, if you can understand the words coming out of my mouth, you're living your life right now. So we can't just and also by talking like that, we're putting a whole lot of pressure on maybe this one time going to rehab, or we're putting a whole lot of pressure on, this time in detox. We're putting a whole lot of pressure on maybe, going to school here, or maybe a whole lot of pressure on this job interview, or a whole lot of pressure on this, or a whole lot of pressure on that. We need to be honest about how much we can affect, basically, reset doesn't mean that you have to start over on all these things. We're in the middle of living these things. And also it means admitting that we've been a little bit lost, and that we have the courage to take a little bit of truthful step, right? According to behavioral research, people who reflect honesty on mistakes are 40% more likely to experience long-term change. And those who practice daily gratitude, we talk about this all the time on Devil Dog Addiction, Turn Positive Influence, that if you can figure out what you're grateful for, if you can actually think about it on a day-to-day basis, it's going to make you feel better. And unlike the grocery market where you can't combine coupons, we can stack statistics here. So, a little bit of self-reflection there, a little bit of honest journaling here, a little bit of communication practice there, a little bit of truth-telling there, and you're upping your percentage of feeling good, having mental peace, and staying sober. And that sounds pretty good, right? Translation, the truth sets you free, but gratitude, that keeps you steady. That is the maintenance. So stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting to feel ready. You got to start now, my friends, with what you've got, where you are. The miracle is not the mountaintop moment. I tell you this, I know that we're like, oh, I want to do this so I can achieve that. Getting that achievement is not the end all. The journey is the end all, my friends. So it's time to wrap up with our call to action, the walk to reset. Here's your homework for the week. 1 act of truth. Tell someone something honest that you have been avoiding. Kindly, clearly, or do 1 act of presence. How about this? Put the phone down, put the text phone down, talk to someone in person that you would have talked in text, and make eye contact. And how about this? Really listen. Don't be thinking about what you're going to say when the other person's talking. Think about what they're saying and what it means for them and what they're going through at that given time. And how about this? If you can't do that, let's try 1 act of grace. Forgive somebody. Forgive anyone. And here's the kicker. It can even be you. Because if we all reset just a little, if we live with 10% more honesty this week, the world is going to shift. And that's not theory, my friends. That is physics of the soul. So it's time to close with our closing reflection. Do not be fooled by appearances. Do not be fooled by the noise. Do not be fooled by the comfort. God does not live in the show. He does not live in the performance. He lives in the preparation, and he mainly lives in the sincerity. So reset your heart, reset your habits, and reset your honesty. Because that is the real positive influence. When faith stops being a word and starts being a way. Hope you guys have a great day, a beautiful Sunday. I'm Nick, and this was Positive Influence.
You have people listening
One
to
second.
it?
1 second. I'm not off yet. Let's see.